In a world that never stops talking, true power lies in knowing when to remain silent while everyone else is broadcasting their every move, sharing their plans, and seeking validation through noise. The most successful people understand a fundamental truth. Silence is not emptiness. It is fullness. It is not weakness. It is strength. It is not absence. It is presence. Today you will discover how to harness the most underestimated force in the universe. You will learn why the quietest people in the room often wield the most influence. Why those who speak less accomplish more, and how strategic silence can transform every aspect of your life. This is not about becoming passive or withdrawn. This is about becoming powerful. The power of silence will make everything flow in your favor. But first, you must understand what true silence really means. Chapter 1. The Misunderstood Power. Most people have completely misunderstood what silence means. They think silence is about being shy, withdrawn, or having nothing to say. They believe that quiet people lack confidence or ambition. But this could not be further from the truth. True silence is not about the absence of words. It is about the presence of wisdom. It is not about having nothing to say. It is about choosing when and how to say it. Real silence is strategic. It is deliberate. It is powerful. When you master the art of silence, you gain access to a level of influence that loud people will never understand. You develop a presence that speaks louder than any words ever could. You cultivate an energy that draws people toward you rather than pushing them away. Think about the most influential people you know. Notice how they carry themselves. They do not feel the need to fill every moment with chatter. They do not interrupt others to prove their intelligence. They listen more than they speak. And when they do speak, people listen. This is not coincidence. This is the power of silence at work. Silence gives you the space to think before you react. It allows you to observe before you judge. It provides you with the clarity to see opportunities that others miss because they are too busy talking to notice. While everyone else is competing for attention, you are quietly positioning yourself for success. The world rewards those who understand timing. And timing requires silence. It requires the ability to wait, to watch, to listen, and to act only when the moment is right. Silence teaches you patience. And patience is one of the most valuable skills you can develop in a world that demands instant gratification. When you embrace silence, you stop being reactive and start being responsive. You stop being driven by emotion and start being guided by wisdom. You stop seeking validation from others and start finding confidence from within. This transformation does not happen overnight. But when it does happen, everything changes. Silence also protects your energy. Every time you explain yourself, defend your choices, or argue with someone who does not understand your vision, you leak energy. Every time you engage in meaningless conversations or feel compelled to share your personal business, you give away pieces of your power. Silence keeps your energy contained, focused, and directed toward what truly matters. The most successful people understand that their thoughts, plans, and strategies are valuable. They do not give them away freely. They protect their ideas like precious resources, sharing them only with those who have earned the right to hear them. This is not about being secretive or deceptive. This is about being selective and strategic. Silence allows you to move through the world with mystery and intrigue. People are naturally drawn to those they cannot easily figure out. When you do not reveal everything about yourself, others become curious. They want to know more. They pay attention to your actions because your words are not drowning out your impact. In a culture that celebrates oversharing and constant communication, choosing silence is a revolutionary act. It sets you apart from the crowd. It makes you memorable. It makes you powerful. But most importantly, it makes you effective. The power of silence is not about becoming invisible. It is about becoming magnetic. It is not about withdrawing from the world. It is about engaging with it more intentionally. When you understand this distinction, you begin to see silence not as a limitation but as a superpower. Chapter 2. The Energy of Stillness. There is a profound energy that exists in stillness. An energy that most people never tap into because they are afraid of quiet moments. They fill every silence with noise, every pause with distraction, every moment of solitude with entertainment. But in doing so, they miss out on accessing one of the most powerful forces available to human beings, the energy of stillness. Stillness is not emptiness. It is fullness. It is not the absence of movement. It is the presence of intention. When you learn to be still both physically and mentally, you connect with a deeper part of yourself that holds wisdom, clarity, and power. This connection transforms how you move through the world. Think about water. When water is turbulent and chaotic, you cannot see through it clearly. But when water becomes still, it becomes transparent, reflective, and powerful. Your mind works the same way. When your thoughts are constantly churning, when you are always reacting and responding to external stimuli, your inner vision becomes clouded. But when you cultivate stillness, your mind becomes clear, your intuition sharpens, and your decision improves dramatically. Stillness allows you to hear the subtle signals that others miss. In business, in relationships, in life, success often depends on your ability to pick up on nuances, to read between the lines, to sense what is not being said. These subtle communications can only be perceived when your mind is still and your attention is focused. The energy of stillness also creates a powerful presence. When you are comfortable with silence, when you do not feel the need to constantly fill space with words or actions, you develop a gravity that draws others toward you. People sense your centeredness, your confidence, your peace. They feel safe in your presence because you are not scattered or reactive. This presence becomes a form of leadership. Others naturally look to still-centered people for guidance and direction. They trust those who do not get swept away by every emotion or influenced by every opinion. They respect those who can remain calm under pressure and clear in chaos. Stillness teaches you the difference between doing and being. Most people are addicted to doing. They believe their worth comes from their productivity, their busyness, their constant motion. But the most fulfilled and successful people understand the power of being. They know that who you are matters more than what you do. And who you are can only be fully realized in moments of stillness. When you regularly practice stillness, you begin to operate from a different frequency. You move from a place of reaction to a place of response. You shift from anxiety to peace, from confusion to clarity, from weakness to strength. This shift is palpable to others. They can feel the difference in your energy even if they cannot name what it is. Stillness also amplifies your ability to focus. In a world full of distractions, the ability to concentrate deeply on one thing is becoming a rare and valuable skill. When you train yourself to be still, you train your mind to resist the pull of external distractions. You develop the mental discipline necessary to pursue your goals with laser-like focus. The practice of stillness is not about meditation. Although meditation can be one way to cultivate it, stillness can be found in any moment when you choose to be fully present rather than scattered. When you choose to listen rather than speak, when you choose to observe rather than react, it is available to you at any time in any place regardless of your circumstances. Regular periods of stillness also restore your energy. While everyone else is depleting themselves through constant activity and stimulation, you are recharging through stillness. This gives you a significant advantage in terms of stamina, resilience, and sustained performance. The energy of stillness becomes a competitive advantage in every area of life. In negotiations, the person who is comfortable with silence often comes out ahead. In relationships, the person who can listen without immediately responding creates deeper connections. In decision-making, the person who can pause and reflect before acting makes better choices. Stillness is not passivity. It is not withdrawal. It is conscious presence. It is active awareness. It is engaged peace. When you master the energy of stillness, you discover that you can accomplish more by doing less, influence more by saying less, and achieve more by forcing less. This is the paradox of power. Sometimes the strongest action is no action at all. Chapter 3. Strategic silence in relationships. Relationships are where the power of silence becomes most apparent and most transformative. Whether in romantic partnerships, friendships, family dynamics, or professional relationships, how you use silence determines the quality and depth of your connections with others. Most people use words as their primary tool for building relationships. But truly wise people understand that silence often communicates more effectively than speech. Strategic silence in relationships is not about giving someone the cold shoulder or being passive-aggressive. It is about creating space for others to express themselves fully. About listening so deeply that people feel truly heard and understood. When you resist the urge to immediately respond, advise or fix, you give others the gift of being genuinely seen. In conversations, most people are not really listening. They are waiting for their turn to speak, formulating their response or thinking about their own experiences. But when you practice strategic silence, you become a rare person who actually hears what others are saying. This quality alone will set you apart and make you incredibly valuable to others. Silence also allows you to observe the true nature of the people around you. When you are not constantly talking, you have the opportunity to watch how others behave, what they prioritize, how they treat other people. You begin to see patterns and inconsistencies that you would miss if you were focused on your own voice. This insight helps you make better decisions about who deserves your time, energy, and trust. In romantic relationships, silence can deepen intimacy in ways that words cannot. Comfortable silence between partners indicates a level of connection that goes beyond the need for constant communication. It shows that you can simply be together without feeling awkward or compelled to fill space with chatter. This kind of presence creates a profound sense of safety and belonging. Silence also prevents many unnecessary conflicts. Most arguments escalate because people react immediately to things that trigger them emotionally. But when you pause before responding, when you take time to process what was said and consider your response carefully, you often find that the emotional charge dissipates. What seemed like a major issue in the heat of the moment may not seem worth fighting about after a period of reflection. The practice of strategic silence teaches you emotional regulation. Instead of being at the mercy of your immediate reactions, you develop the ability to choose your responses consciously. This emotional maturity is attractive to others and creates more stable, harmonious relationships. In professional settings, silence can be a powerful tool for influence and leadership. When you ask a question and then remain silent, you create pressure for others to respond. This technique is invaluable in negotiations, sales situations, and team meetings. The person who is comfortable with silence often controls the conversation without saying a word. Silence also demonstrates confidence. Insecure people feel compelled to fill every pause with words to prove their intelligence or worth through constant chatter. But confident people are comfortable with quiet moments. They do not feel the need to impress others with their verbal abilities, because their presence speaks for itself. Strategic silence helps you avoid oversharing, which is one of the fastest ways to diminish your value in relationships. When you reveal too much too quickly, you lose mystery and intrigue. People appreciate what they have to work for, what they have to earn. By sharing selectively and maintaining some privacy, you keep others interested and engaged. Silence can also be a form of protection. Not every thought needs to be expressed. Not every opinion needs to be shared, and not every emotion needs to be communicated immediately. Sometimes the wisest choice is to keep your thoughts to yourself, especially when emotions are high or when sharing might damage a relationship unnecessarily. In family dynamics, silence can break generational patterns of reactivity and drama. When you refuse to engage in arguments, when you do not take the bait that others offer, when you respond to chaos with calm, you model a different way of being. Over time, this can transform the entire energy of family interactions. The power of silence in relationships also extends to how you handle criticism or attacks. When someone is trying to provoke you, the most powerful response is often no response at all. This refusal to engage removes their ability to control your emotional state and often leaves them feeling foolish for their behavior. Strategic silence teaches you to value quality over quantity in your relationships. Instead of trying to maintain superficial connections with many people, you focus on building deep, meaningful relationships with fewer people. This leads to more fulfilling and supportive social connections. Ultimately, silence in relationships is about respect. It shows respect for others by giving them space to express themselves. It shows respect for yourself by not feeling compelled to explain or defend every aspect of your life. And it shows respect for the relationship itself by not cluttering it with unnecessary words or drama. When you master strategic silence in relationships, you become someone others trust, respect, and want to be around. Chapter 4. The Psychology of Quiet Confidence. Quiet confidence is perhaps the most attractive and powerful form of self-assurance that exists. Unlike loud, boastful confidence that seeks to prove itself through words and actions, quiet confidence simply exists. It does not need validation, applause, or recognition to maintain itself. It is an internal state of being that radiates outward, influencing others without demanding attention. The psychology behind quiet confidence is rooted in self-knowledge and self-acceptance. People who possess quiet confidence know who they are, what they are capable of, and what they stand for. They do not need external confirmation of their worth because they have already confirmed it internally. This inner security creates a stable foundation that cannot be shaken by criticism, setbacks, or the opinions of others. Quiet confidence develops through competence and experience. Unlike false confidence that is based on pretense or delusion, quiet confidence is earned through actual achievement and growth. Every challenge you overcome in silence, every skill you develop without fanfare, every goal you accomplish without seeking applause adds to your reservoir of quiet confidence. This type of confidence is incredibly attractive to others because it is authentic. People can sense the difference between someone who is trying to appear confident and someone who actually is confident. Quiet confidence does not try to impress or convince. It simply is. This authenticity draws others toward you because it feels safe and real. In a world full of pretense and performance, the quietly confident person speaks less but carries more influence. When they do speak, others listen because they have learned to trust that this person does not waste words. Their opinions carry weight because they are not constantly offering opinions. Their advice is valued because they do not give advice unless it is asked for or truly needed. Quiet confidence also demonstrates emotional intelligence. It shows that you understand the power of restraint, the value of timing, and the importance of reading social situations accurately. You know when to speak and when to remain silent, when to act and when to wait, when to lead and when to follow. This type of confidence is particularly powerful because it cannot be easily replicated or faked. Loud confidence can be performed, but quiet confidence must be developed. It requires genuine self-work, real achievement, and authentic growth because it cannot be faked. It carries more credibility and influence than performative confidence. People with quiet confidence do not feel threatened by the success of others. They do not need to tear others down to build themselves up. They can celebrate others genuinely because their own self-worth is not dependent on comparison or competition. This quality makes them excellent leaders, friends, and partners. Quiet confidence is also resilient because it is not dependent on external validation. It cannot be destroyed by external circumstances. Criticism may sting temporarily, but it does not shake the foundation of quiet confidence. Setbacks may be disappointing, but they do not create lasting damage to self-esteem. This resilience allows quietly confident people to take risks, pursue ambitious goals, and recover quickly from failures. The development of quiet confidence requires you to shift your focus from external metrics to internal growth. Instead of measuring your worth by what others think of you, you measure it by your own standards and values. Instead of seeking applause for every achievement, you find satisfaction in the work itself. Instead of needing constant reassurance, you develop the ability to reassure yourself. Quiet confidence also involves accepting your imperfections without letting them define you. Everyone has weaknesses, limitations, and areas for improvement. The quietly confident person acknowledges these without shame or denial. They work on improvement not because they hate themselves as they are, but because they love themselves enough to become better. This type of confidence creates a powerful presence that others find magnetic. There is something deeply appealing about a person who is comfortable in their own skin, who does not need to prove anything to anyone, who can be fully present without agenda or pretense. This presence is rare in a world where most people are either trying too hard or not trying at all. Quiet confidence affects every area of life. In professional settings, it leads to natural leadership opportunities because others trust and respect quietly confident individuals in relationships. It creates deeper connections because it allows for genuine intimacy without the barriers of insecurity or the need for constant validation. In personal pursuits, it enables sustained effort and growth because it is not dependent on external recognition or immediate results. The path to quiet confidence involves regular self-reflection, honest self-assessment, and consistent action toward meaningful goals. It requires you to do the work of becoming the person you want to be rather than just talking about who you want to become. Every day that you choose growth over comfort, authenticity over performance, and substance over appearance, you build quiet confidence. Perhaps most importantly, quiet confidence gives you freedom. Freedom from the need to impress others. Freedom from the fear of judgment. Freedom from the exhausting work of maintaining a false image. This freedom allows you to focus your energy on what truly matters. Becoming the best version of yourself and contributing meaningfully to the world around you. Chapter 5. Silence as Protection. In a world where information is currency and privacy is increasingly rare, silence becomes one of your most valuable forms of protection. Every word you speak, every detail you share, every emotion you express publicly becomes data that others can use to understand, predict, and potentially manipulate you. Silence, therefore, is not just about personal preference or social style. It is about strategic self-protection. The protection that silence offers operates on multiple levels. First, it protects your energy. Every conversation you have, every explanation you give, every debate you engage in requires mental and emotional energy. When you are selective about when and how you communicate, you conserve this energy for activities and relationships that truly matter. You stop depleting yourself through unnecessary verbal exchanges. Silence also protects your plans and goals from external interference. The moment you share your ambitions with others, you invite their opinions, doubts, and projections onto your vision. Some people will discourage you out of their own fear or limited thinking. Others will try to insert themselves into your plans or compete with you. Still, others will create pressure and expectations that can actually hinder your progress. When you keep your goals to yourself, you protect them from this external noise. You maintain the purity of your vision and the clarity of your purpose. You can move toward your objectives without having to constantly defend or explain your choices. This protection allows your ideas to develop and evolve naturally without outside pressure or premature exposure. Your reputation is another area where silence provides crucial protection. In our culture of oversharing and instant communication, it is easy to say something that can be taken out of context, misunderstood, or used against you later. Social media has created a permanent record of our thoughts and emotions, often capturing us at our worst moments. Silence helps you avoid these pitfalls by giving you time to think before you speak and space to process emotions before expressing them. Silence protects you from manipulation and mind games. People who are skilled at manipulation often use your words against you, twist your statements, or bait you into revealing information they can exploit. When you are comfortable with silence, you do not feel compelled to fill awkward pauses or answer inappropriate questions. You can simply not respond, which often disarms manipulative tactics. The protection of silence extends to your emotional well-being when you do not feel obligated to explain yourself to everyone. You avoid much of the stress and anxiety that comes from seeking approval or avoiding judgment. You reduce the mental load of managing other people's opinions and expectations. This emotional protection allows you to maintain better mental health and make decisions based on your own values rather than external pressure. Silence also protects your time, which is your most valuable resource. Unnecessary conversations, debates, and explanations consume time that could be spent on productive activities. When you become more selective about when you engage verbally, you create more time for the activities and relationships that truly enrich your life. In professional environments, silence can protect your career in various ways. It helps you avoid office gossip and politics that can damage your reputation. It prevents you from saying something in frustration or anger that you might regret later. It allows you to observe workplace dynamics without getting entangled in them unnecessarily. Financial protection is another benefit of strategic silence. When you do not discuss your income, investments, or financial situation casually, you protect yourself from requests for money, jealousy, and financial manipulation. Your financial privacy allows you to make money decisions based on your own situation rather than social pressure or expectations. Silence protects your relationships by preventing unnecessary conflicts and misunderstandings. Many relationship problems arise from miscommunication or from speaking when emotions are high. When you give yourself time to process your feelings before expressing them, you communicate more effectively and avoid saying things that could damage your connections with others. The protection of silence also includes protecting your peace of mind. When you do not engage in every argument, respond to every criticism, or defend every aspect of your life, you maintain your inner tranquility. You refuse to let other people's words or actions disturb your mental equilibrium. This protective quality of silence requires wisdom to implement effectively. It is not about becoming antisocial or completely closed off. It is about being strategic about when, how, and with whom you communicate. You learn to distinguish between conversations that serve a meaningful purpose and those that are simply noise. Developing the protective power of silence also means learning to be comfortable with being misunderstood. Not everyone will understand your choice to speak less or share less. Some people may interpret your silence as rudeness, arrogance, or disinterest. Part of protecting yourself through silence means accepting that you cannot control how others interpret your behavior and that their interpretation is their responsibility, not yours. The ultimate protection that silence offers is the protection of your authentic self. In a world that constantly pressures you to perform, explain, and justify your existence, choosing silence allows you to remain true to who you are rather than becoming who others expect you to be. This authenticity is perhaps the most valuable thing you can protect because it is the foundation of a meaningful and fulfilling life. Chapter 6. The Art of Strategic Listening. True listening is one of the most powerful skills you can develop. Yet, it is also one of the rarest. Most people have forgotten how to listen because they are too busy preparing their response, defending their position, or waiting for their turn to speak. But when you master the art of strategic listening, you gain access to information, influence, and opportunities that others completely miss. Strategic listening goes far beyond simply hearing words. It involves listening to what is not being said, understanding the emotions behind the words, and picking up on the subtle cues that reveal a person's true thoughts and motivations. This level of listening requires silence, patience, and genuine curiosity about others. When you listen strategically, you become incredibly valuable to other people. Everyone wants to feel heard and understood. But few people ever experience this feeling because most others are too focused on themselves to truly listen. When you provide this rare gift of genuine attention, people naturally gravitate toward you. They trust you, confide in you, and seek your advice because they feel seen and valued in your presence. Strategic listening also gives you a significant advantage in negotiations and business dealings. While others are busy talking and trying to convince, you are gathering information. You learn about their needs, fears, motivations, and constraints. You discover what they really want versus what they say they want. This information becomes power that you can use to create solutions that benefit everyone involved. The practice of strategic listening requires you to quiet your ego and your need to be right or impressive. Instead of listening for opportunities to insert your own opinions or experiences, you listen for understanding. You ask questions that encourage others to elaborate rather than questions that prove your own knowledge. You create space for others to think out loud and process their thoughts verbally. One of the most powerful aspects of strategic listening is its ability to diffuse tension and conflict. When people feel truly heard, their defensiveness often melts away. They become more open, more cooperative, and more willing to find mutually beneficial solutions. Many conflicts exist not because of irreconcilable differences, but because people feel misunderstood or ignored. Strategic listening can resolve these conflicts before they escalate. Strategic listening also reveals patterns that others miss. When you consistently listen without judgment, people will tell you things they might not normally share. Over time, you begin to see patterns in human behavior, motivations, and decision-making processes. This pattern recognition becomes invaluable in predicting behavior, identifying opportunities, and making better decisions about the people you choose to work with or invest your time in. The silence required for strategic listening creates space for innovation and creativity. When you are not immediately jumping in with solutions or suggestions, you allow others to fully explore their thoughts and come to their own conclusions. Often the best ideas emerge from this type of patient, supportive listening environment. People solve their own problems when given the space to think through them completely. Strategic listening also builds your emotional intelligence and empathy. The more you practice truly understanding others, the better you become at reading emotions, motivations, and unspoken needs. This emotional intelligence becomes a competitive advantage in every area of life, from leadership and management to personal relationships and parenting. In professional settings, strategic listening can accelerate your career advancement. Leaders and managers value people who can listen effectively because it makes their own jobs easier. When you consistently demonstrate that you understand instructions, can identify underlying issues, and can work well with others, you become indispensable. Many promotions go to the person who listens best, not the person who talks the most. The practice of strategic listening requires discipline and intentionality. You must resist the urge to interrupt even when you have something important to say. You must push aside distractions and give your full attention to the speaker. You must ask clarifying questions when you do not understand rather than making assumptions. You must suspend judgment and criticism even when you disagree with what you are hearing. Strategic listening also involves paying attention to nonverbal communication. Body language, tone of voice, facial expressions, and energy levels often communicate more than words do. When you learn to read these subtle signals, you gain insight into what people are really thinking and feeling regardless of what they are saying verbally. The patience required for strategic listening is a skill that transfers to other areas of life. When you become comfortable with allowing conversations to unfold naturally rather than rushing toward conclusions, you develop a tolerance for uncertainty and ambiguity that serves you well in complex situations. You become more thoughtful in your decision-making and less reactive in your responses. Strategic listening builds trust faster than almost any other behavior. When people feel that you genuinely care about understanding them, they begin to see you as an ally rather than a competitor. This trust opens doors to opportunities, partnerships, and relationships that would not be available to someone who is seen as self-centered or dismissive. The art of strategic listening also teaches you about yourself. As you listen to others share their experiences, challenges, and perspectives, you gain insight into your own patterns of thinking and behaving. You become more self-aware and better able to identify your own biases, assumptions, and blind spots. Perhaps most importantly, strategic listening demonstrates wisdom and maturity. It shows that you value understanding over being understood, learning over teaching, and connection over performance. These qualities are attractive to successful people who are looking for others they can trust and rely on. When you master the art of strategic listening, you position yourself to learn from the best and brightest people in any field or industry. Chapter 7. Silence and Intuition. Your intuition is one of your most powerful guides. But it can only be heard in silence, in the constant noise of modern life with its endless distractions, opinions, and external input. The subtle voice of your inner wisdom often gets drowned out. The practice of silence creates the space necessary for your intuition to emerge and provide you with guidance that your rational mind alone cannot access. Intuition is not mystical or supernatural. It is your subconscious mind processing information and patterns that your conscious mind has not yet recognized. Your brain is constantly taking in far more information than you can consciously process. And intuition is how this deeper processing expresses itself. When you cultivate silence, you create the conditions necessary for this valuable information to reach your conscious awareness. The relationship between silence and intuition is symbiotic. Silence allows you to hear your intuitive insights. And following your intuition often leads you to seek more silence for reflection and guidance. This creates a positive cycle that enhances both your inner wisdom and your decision-making abilities. Most people ignore their intuition because they have been taught to rely exclusively on logical analysis and external advice. While logic and outside input are certainly valuable, they are not sufficient for navigating the complexity of human experience. The most successful people learn to integrate logical thinking with intuitive insight, using both rational analysis and inner wisdom to make decisions. Your intuition often manifests as a feeling, a sense, or a knowing that something is right or wrong, even when you cannot immediately explain why. This might be a gut feeling about a person you meet, a sense that you should pursue a particular opportunity, or an awareness that you need to make a change in your life. These intuitive insights are often more accurate than purely logical assessments because they incorporate information that your conscious mind has not fully processed. Developing your ability to access and trust your intuition requires regular periods of silence and reflection. This might involve meditation, quiet walks in nature, journaling, or simply sitting quietly without distractions. During these periods of silence, you learn to distinguish between the voice of intuition and the chatter of anxiety, fear, or wishful thinking. True intuitive insights have certain characteristics that help you recognize them. They often feel calm and certain rather than anxious or desperate. They tend to be simple and clear rather than complicated or convoluted. They usually align with your deeper values and long-term well-being rather than your immediate desires or ego needs. Learning to recognize these characteristics helps you trust your intuitive guidance more readily. Silence also helps you develop the patience necessary to wait for intuitive guidance. In our instant gratification culture, people often want immediate answers to complex questions. But true wisdom sometimes requires time to emerge. When you are comfortable with silence and uncertainty, you can wait for clarity rather than rushing into decisions based on incomplete information or external pressure. The practice of accessing your intuition through silence also builds your self-reliance and confidence. Instead of constantly seeking advice from others or looking for external validation of your choices, you develop the ability to find guidance from within. This does not mean you never seek input from others, but it means you have a reliable internal compass that helps you evaluate external advice and make decisions that are right for you. Your intuition often provides guidance about people and relationships that your logical mind might miss. You might have an immediate sense about whether someone is trustworthy, whether a relationship has potential, or whether a particular social situation is healthy for you. These intuitive assessments are often based on subtle cues that you have picked up unconsciously but have not yet processed logically. In business and career decisions, intuition can be incredibly valuable. While financial analysis and market research are important, your intuitive sense about opportunities, partnerships, and timing can make the difference between success and failure. Many successful entrepreneurs and business leaders credit their intuitive insights for their most important decisions. Silence allows you to access what some people call your higher wisdom or your authentic self. This is the part of you that knows what truly matters, what brings you fulfillment, and what aligns with your deepest values. When you make decisions from this place of inner knowing rather than from external expectations or social pressure, you create a life that feels authentic and meaningful. The development of intuitive abilities through silence also enhances your creativity and problem-solving capabilities. When you quiet your analytical mind and allow yourself to simply be with a challenge or question, creative solutions often emerge spontaneously. This is because creativity requires a different type of mental processing than logical analysis. And this creative processing can only occur when the mind is relaxed and open. Your intuition can also guide you in timing your actions and decisions. Sometimes you might have a clear sense that the timing is right for a particular move, or conversely that you should wait before taking action. This intuitive timing can be crucial for success, as the same action taken at different times can have dramatically different results. Trusting your intuition requires courage because it often leads you away from conventional wisdom or popular opinion. Your inner guidance might tell you to pursue a path that others do not understand or support. But when you learn to trust this guidance, you often find that it leads to opportunities and experiences that are perfectly suited to your unique talents and circumstances. The practice of silence for accessing intuition also teaches you the difference between fear and wisdom. Fear often masquerades as intuition, telling you to avoid risks or maintain the status quo. But true intuitive guidance feels different from fear. It feels expansive rather than contractive, curious rather than anxious, and aligned with growth rather than safety. Regular access to your intuition through silence also helps you stay connected to your purpose and meaning. When you are constantly busy and distracted, it is easy to lose sight of what truly matters to you. But in silence, you can reconnect with your deeper motivations and ensure that your actions are aligned with your authentic desires rather than external expectations. Chapter 8. The Power of Mysterious Presence. There is something deeply magnetic about a person who maintains an air of mystery. While most people feel compelled to share every detail of their lives, thoughts, and experiences, those who understand the power of mysterious presence recognize that what you do not reveal is often more influential than what you do reveal. This mystery creates intrigue, respect, and a natural desire in others to know more about you. Mysterious presence is not about being secretive or deceptive. It is about being selective and intentional about what you share and when you share it. It is about understanding that your personal information, your thoughts and your experiences have value, and that this value can be diminished if you give everything away too freely or too quickly. When you maintain some mystery about yourself, you become more interesting to others. People are naturally curious about what they do not fully understand. They want to figure out what makes you tick, what drives you, what you care about. This curiosity creates engagement and investment from others that cannot be achieved through complete transparency. The power of mysterious presence lies in its rarity. In a culture of oversharing where people broadcast their every thought on social media and feel compelled to explain every aspect of their lives, someone who maintains discretion stands out. You become memorable not because of what you say but because of what you choose not to say. This mysterious quality also commands respect. When you do not feel the need to explain yourself constantly, when you are comfortable with letting your actions speak for themselves, others perceive you as confident and self-assured. They sense that you have depth and substance that goes beyond surface-level chatter. Mysterious presence creates space for others to project their own interpretations and assumptions onto you. And these projections are often more favorable than reality might warrant when people do not have complete information about you. They tend to fill in the gaps with positive assumptions, especially if your behavior and demeanor suggest competence and integrity. The practice of maintaining mysterious presence requires discipline and self-control. You must resist the urge to overshare when you are excited, nervous, or seeking connection. You must be comfortable with people not knowing everything about you. You must trust that your worth is not dependent on others' complete understanding of your life and circumstances. Mysterious presence also protects you from judgment and criticism. When people do not have detailed information about your personal life, your struggles or your mistakes, they cannot use this information against you. You maintain your privacy and dignity while still engaging meaningfully with others. In professional settings, mysterious presence can be particularly powerful when colleagues and superiors do not know all the details of your personal life. They are more likely to focus on your work performance and professional capabilities. You avoid the workplace gossip and drama that often surrounds people who share too much personal information. The mystery you maintain should be authentic to who you are. It should not be a performance or a manipulation, but rather a natural expression of your desire for privacy and discretion. People can sense when mystery is genuine versus when it is contrived, and only authentic mystery has lasting power and appeal. Mysterious presence also enhances your listening skills and observational abilities. When you are not constantly sharing your own experiences and opinions, you have more mental space to focus on others. You become better at reading people, understanding situations, and gathering information that can be valuable in various contexts. The power of mysterious presence extends to romantic relationships as well. While intimacy requires vulnerability and sharing, maintaining some level of mystery, even in close relationships, can keep the dynamic interesting and prevent the relationship from becoming stagnant or predictable. People continue to be attracted to partners who retain some element of the unknown. This mysterious quality also gives you flexibility and freedom. When people do not have fixed ideas about who you are based on extensive personal information, you have more room to grow, change, and evolve without being constrained by others' expectations or preconceptions about your character. Mysterious presence requires you to become comfortable with being misunderstood. Some people may interpret your discretion as unfriendliness, arrogance, or disinterest. Part of maintaining mystery is accepting that you cannot control how others interpret your behavior and that their interpretation says more about them than about you. The development of mysterious presence also enhances your self-reliance and independence. When you do not constantly seek validation or understanding from others through sharing personal information, you develop a stronger sense of self that is not dependent on external feedback or approval. In leadership roles, mysterious presence can increase your authority and influence. When team members do not know every detail of your personal life or thought processes, they are more likely to respect your decisions and follow your guidance. There is something powerful about a leader who maintains professional boundaries and does not blur the lines between personal and professional relationships. The practice of mysterious presence also teaches you the value of timing in communication. You learn when to share information for maximum impact, when to withhold information for strategic advantage, and when to reveal personal details to deepen relationships appropriately. Mysterious presence creates a sense of depth and substance that attracts high-quality people into your life. Shallow people are often put off by mystery because they prefer surface-level interactions and immediate gratification. But thoughtful, mature people are drawn to the depth and complexity that mystery suggests. Perhaps most importantly, mysterious presence allows you to maintain your authentic self while navigating social and professional situations. You can engage meaningfully with others without compromising your privacy or feeling compelled to perform or explain yourself constantly. This balance between engagement and discretion is one of the most valuable social skills you can develop. Chapter 9. Silence in Conflict Resolution. Conflict is an inevitable part of human relationships. But how you handle conflict determines whether it becomes destructive or constructive. Most people approach conflict with words, arguments, and attempts to prove their point through verbal combat. However, the most effective conflict resolution often involves strategic use of silence, which can diffuse tension, create space for understanding, and lead to genuine resolution rather than temporary victory. When conflict arises, the immediate impulse is usually to defend yourself, explain your position, or counterattack. These responses, while natural, often escalate the conflict rather than resolve it. Silence, on the other hand, breaks this pattern of escalation when you choose not to immediately respond to an attack or criticism. You interrupt the cycle of reaction and counter-reaction that keeps conflicts going. The power of silence in conflict lies in its ability to create emotional space. When tensions are high and emotions are intense, rational discussion is often impossible. Silence allows emotions to cool down both in yourself and in the other person. This cooling off period creates the possibility for more productive communication once the initial emotional charge has dissipated. Silence also demonstrates emotional maturity and self-control. When someone is trying to provoke you into an argument, refusing to take the bait shows that you are not controlled by their emotions or agenda. This refusal to engage often leaves the other person feeling foolish for their aggressive behavior and can lead them to reconsider their approach. Strategic silence in conflict allows you to observe the true nature of the situation and the people involved. When you are not caught up in defending yourself or proving your point, you can see the conflict more clearly. You might notice that the other person is acting out of fear, frustration, or pain rather than genuine anger toward you. This understanding can lead to more compassionate and effective responses. The practice of remaining silent during initial conflict also gives you time to consider your response carefully. Instead of reacting emotionally and saying things you might regret later, you can choose your words and actions thoughtfully. This deliberate approach often leads to much better outcomes than reactive responses. Silence can also be a form of de-escalation that preserves relationships. Many conflicts are not really about the surface issue being discussed, but about deeper needs for respect, understanding, or recognition. When you respond to conflict with silence and careful listening, you often discover these underlying needs and can address them more effectively than if you had focused only on the surface disagreement. In some cases, silence reveals that the conflict is not worth engaging with at all. Not every criticism needs a response. Not every insult deserves a comeback. And not every disagreement requires resolution. Sometimes the most powerful response to conflict is no response at all, especially when the other person is clearly trying to manipulate or provoke you. The use of silence in conflict resolution also teaches you to distinguish between conflicts that are worth your energy and those that are not. Some conflicts arise from misunderstandings that can be easily cleared up, while others stem from fundamental differences in values or character that cannot be resolved through discussion. Silence gives you time to make this distinction and respond accordingly. When you do choose to speak after a period of silence during conflict, your words often carry more weight and impact because you have taken time to consider your response and have not been reactive. People are more likely to listen to what you have to say. Your measured response demonstrates that you are serious and thoughtful rather than emotional or defensive. Silence in conflict also models a different way of handling disagreements for others. Many people have never seen conflict handled with restraint, patience, and thoughtfulness. When you demonstrate this approach, you show others that there are alternatives to shouting matches, personal attacks, and dramatic confrontations. The practice of using silence in conflict resolution builds your emotional resilience and confidence. Each time you successfully resist the urge to react defensively or aggressively, you prove to yourself that you can remain calm under pressure. This growing confidence makes you less likely to be triggered by future conflicts and more effective at handling challenging situations. Strategic silence also prevents you from saying things that could permanently damage relationships. In the heat of conflict, people often say cruel or hurtful things that they do not really mean but cannot take back. Silence protects you from making these relationship-ending mistakes and preserves the possibility for future reconciliation and healing. The use of silence in conflict resolution requires wisdom to know when to speak and when to remain quiet. Sometimes silence is the right choice, but other times clear communication is necessary to address legitimate concerns or set appropriate boundaries. The skill lies in learning to distinguish between these situations and responding appropriately. Silence can also reveal the true motivations behind conflicts. Some people create conflict for attention, drama, or control rather than because they genuinely want to resolve a problem. When you do not give them the reaction they are seeking, their true motivations often become apparent and you can decide whether the relationship is worth maintaining. In professional settings, the ability to handle conflict with silence and grace can advance your career significantly. Employers value people who can remain calm under pressure, de-escalate tense situations, and maintain productive relationships even when disagreements arise. These skills are particularly valuable in leadership roles where conflict management is a regular responsibility. The long-term benefits of using silence in conflict resolution include deeper, more authentic relationships. When you handle disagreements with maturity and restraint, others learn to trust that they can be honest with you without fear of explosive reactions. This trust leads to more open communication and stronger connections. Perhaps most importantly, using silence in conflict resolution teaches you that you do not need to win every argument or prove every point to maintain your dignity and self-respect. Sometimes the greatest victory is walking away from a fight that serves no constructive purpose. This wisdom can save you enormous amounts of time, energy, and emotional stress throughout your life. Chapter 10. The Silent Leader. True leadership is not about being the loudest voice in the room or commanding attention through charisma and grand speeches. The most effective leaders often lead through example, influence, and a powerful presence that speaks louder than words. Silent leadership is about creating influence through competence, consistency, and character rather than through verbal persuasion or dramatic gestures. Silent leaders understand that their actions carry more weight than their words. They focus on delivering results, maintaining high standards, and demonstrating the behaviors they want to see in others. This approach creates a natural authority that does not depend on titles, positions, or formal recognition. People follow silent leaders because they respect them, not because they are forced to. The power of silent leadership lies in its authenticity. These leaders do not need to perform or put on a show to maintain their influence. They are the same person in private as they are in public, which creates trust and credibility that cannot be achieved through performance alone. This consistency makes others feel safe and secure in their leadership. Silent leaders are exceptional listeners who gather information before making decisions. They understand that the person with the most information and the best understanding of a situation is usually in the best position to lead effectively. By listening more than they speak, they gain insights that help them make better decisions and provide more valuable guidance to their teams. These leaders also demonstrate emotional intelligence and self-control. They do not allow their emotions to dictate their responses or decisions when others are reactive and chaotic. Silent leaders remain calm and centered, providing stability and direction that others can rely on. This emotional stability is particularly valuable during crisis or challenging periods. The influence of silent leaders extends beyond their immediate teams or organizations because they focus on substance over appearance. They often develop reputations that open doors and create opportunities that would not be available to more theatrical leaders. Their influence spreads through networks of people who respect their competence and character. Silent leaders invest heavily in developing others rather than promoting themselves. They understand that their success is ultimately measured by the success of the people they led. This focus on development creates loyalty and commitment that goes far beyond what can be achieved through commands or incentives alone. The decision-making process of silent leaders is typically more thorough and thoughtful than that of more impulsive leaders. They take time to consider multiple perspectives, evaluate potential consequences, and ensure that their decisions align with their values and long-term objectives. This careful approach leads to better outcomes and fewer mistakes that require damage control later. Silent leaders also demonstrate confidence through their willingness to delegate and empower others. They do not feel the need to control every detail or take credit for every success. Instead, they focus on creating systems and developing people that can operate effectively even when they are not directly involved. This approach builds organizational strength and resilience. The communication style of silent leaders is characterized by quality over quantity. When they do speak, their words are carefully chosen and meaningful. They do not waste time on small talk or unnecessary meetings. Their communications are direct, clear, and purposeful, which makes others more likely to pay attention and take action. These leaders understand the power of strategic positioning and timing. They know when to step forward and when to step back, when to speak and when to listen, when to lead from the front, and when to support from behind. This strategic awareness allows them to maximize their influence while minimizing unnecessary conflict or resistance. Silent leaders also demonstrate humility and continuous learning. They acknowledge their mistakes, seek feedback, and constantly work to improve their skills and knowledge. This humility makes them more approachable and trustworthy, while their commitment to learning ensures that they stay relevant and effective over time. The legacy of silent leaders is typically more enduring than that of more flashy leaders because their influence is based on substance rather than style. The systems, cultures, and people they develop continue to reflect their impact long after they have moved on to other roles or responsibilities. In organizations, silent leaders often emerge naturally rather than being appointed formally. Their colleagues and team members recognize their competence and begin to seek their guidance and support. This organic leadership development is often more effective than imposed leadership because it is based on genuine respect and trust. The challenges faced by silent leaders include being overlooked for promotions or recognition in favor of more visible vocal candidates. However, this apparent disadvantage often becomes an advantage in the long run as organizations eventually recognize that results matter more than presentation and that sustainable success requires the kind of steady, reliable leadership that silent leaders provide. Silent leaders also excel at building consensus and creating unity within their teams or organizations. Because they listen to different perspectives and do not dominate discussions with their own opinions, they can help groups find common ground and shared objectives. This consensus-building ability is increasingly valuable in diverse, complex organizational environments. The development of silent leadership skills requires self-awareness, self-discipline, and a long-term perspective. It means focusing on building competence rather than building image, on developing others rather than promoting yourself, and on creating value rather than seeking credit. These investments may not pay off immediately, but they create a foundation for lasting influence and impact. Perhaps most importantly, silent leaders understand that leadership is ultimately about service rather than power. They lead not because they want to be in charge, but because they want to make a positive difference in the lives of others and in the world around them. This service orientation creates a form of leadership that inspires and motivates others to become their best selves. Chapter 11. The Economics of Silence. In a world where attention is currency and information is power, silence becomes one of your most valuable economic assets. Every word you speak, every piece of information you share, every opinion you express has economic value that can either be invested wisely or squandered carelessly. Understanding the economics of silence means recognizing that your thoughts, plans, and knowledge are resources that should be managed strategically rather than given away freely. The first principle of silence economics is scarcity value. When you speak less, your words become more valuable. When you share your opinions selectively, people pay more attention when you do speak. When you keep your plans private, the eventual results carry more impact. This scarcity principle works in your favor by increasing the perceived value of your communications and making others more likely to listen when you choose to speak. Your personal information has market value that most people never consider. Details about your income, your relationships, your struggles, your ambitions, and your strategies are all valuable data that others can use for their own advantage. When you share this information casually, you give away assets that could be leveraged more effectively. Successful people understand that information asymmetry creates opportunities and they protect their formational advantages carefully. The time economics of silence are equally important. Every conversation you avoid, every explanation you skip, every debate you refuse to engage in saves you time that can be invested in productive activities. Time is your most finite resource, and silence helps you allocate it more efficiently. While others are spending hours in meaningless conversations or arguments, you are investing your time in activities that actually move you toward your goals. Energy economics also favor silence. Mental and emotional energy are limited resources that must be managed carefully every time you engage in unnecessary communication. Every time you defend your choices to people who do not matter, every time you try to convince someone who is not open to being convinced, you drain energy that could be used more productively. Silence conserves this energy for activities and relationships that truly matter. The networking value of silence is often counterintuitive but extremely powerful. When you are selective about what you share and when you share it, you become more intriguing to high-value people. Successful individuals are often surrounded by people who want something from them, who constantly share their problems or seek advice. Someone who can be present without constantly needing something becomes rare and valuable in these circles. Silence also protects your competitive advantages in business and career situations. Your strategies, your methods, your contacts, and your insights are valuable intellectual property. When you share these freely with colleagues or competitors, you give away advantages that took time and effort to develop. Smart professionals understand that sharing certain information can harm their own interests and opportunities. The investment principle applies to silence as well. Every moment of silence you maintain, every conversation you avoid, every piece of information you keep private is an investment in your future power and influence. Like compound interest, these small investments in silence accumulate over time to create significant advantages. The person who has cultivated mystery and discretion for years has built up tremendous social and professional capital. Risk management through silence is another crucial economic principle. Every statement you make publicly creates potential liability. In our culture of constant documentation and permanent digital records, casual comments can be taken out of context, misunderstood, or used against you years later. Silence eliminates these risks entirely. You cannot be misquoted if you do not speak, and you cannot have your words twisted if you do not provide the raw material. The opportunity cost of speaking is often overlooked. Every moment you spend talking is a moment you are not listening, learning, or observing. Every conversation you engage in is a conversation you cannot have with someone else. Every piece of information you share is information that loses its strategic value. Silent people often have better opportunities because they are better at recognizing and preserving them. Brand value is another economic benefit of strategic silence. When you are selective about your communications, you build a personal brand based on substance rather than noise. People begin to associate you with quality, discretion, and wisdom rather than chatter and superficiality. This brand value translates into better opportunities, stronger relationships, and increased influence over time. The negotiation economics of silence are particularly powerful. In any negotiation, information is leverage, and the person who reveals less while learning more has a significant advantage. Silence creates pressure that often causes others to reveal information they had not intended to share. It also prevents you from talking yourself out of good deals or revealing your true position prematurely. Silence also has insurance value. When you maintain privacy about your personal life, your finances, your relationships, and your plans, you protect yourself from various forms of manipulation and exploitation. People cannot use information against you if they do not have it. This protective value of silence becomes more important as you become more successful and therefore more of a target for those who want to benefit from your success. The compound effect of silence economics becomes apparent over years and decades. People who consistently practice strategic silence often find themselves in positions of greater influence with stronger relationships, more opportunities, and better outcomes than those who share everything freely. This is not coincidence, but the natural result of treating silence as a valuable resource rather than an empty space to be filled. Investment in silence also pays dividends in terms of personal development. The mental discipline required to remain silent when you want to speak, to listen when you want to talk, and to observe when you want to act, builds character traits that are valuable in every area of life. These traits include patience, self-control, wisdom, and emotional intelligence. The economics of silence extend to your legacy as well. People who are remembered for their wisdom and influence rather than their words often practiced strategic silence throughout their lives. They understood that actions speak louder than words, that results matter more than explanations, and that influence is built through demonstration rather than declaration. Understanding the economics of silence requires a shift in mindset from seeing communication as free to recognizing it as a valuable resource that should be invested wisely. This shift changes how you approach conversations, relationships, and opportunities. Instead of giving away your thoughts and information freely, you become strategic about when, how, and with whom you communicate. The ultimate economic principle of silence is that it increases your overall value in the marketplace of relationships, opportunities, and influence. When you are known as someone who speaks thoughtfully, shares selectively, and maintains appropriate boundaries, you become more attractive to high-quality people and opportunities. This increased attractiveness translates into better outcomes in every area of life. Chapter 12. Mastering the pause. The pause is one of the most powerful tools in human communication. Yet most people are terrified of it. They rush to fill every moment of silence with words, afraid that pauses make them appear uncertain, unintelligent, or uncomfortable. However, mastering the strategic use of pauses gives you tremendous power in conversations, negotiations, presentations, and relationships. The pause is where wisdom lives, where influence grows, and where true communication begins. A masterful pause is not empty space, but pregnant potential. It is a moment filled with possibility, reflection, and intention. When you pause before speaking, you create space for your thoughts to organize, your emotions to settle, and your wisdom to emerge. This preparation makes your eventual words more powerful, more precise, and more impactful than reactive speech. The psychological impact of pauses on others is profound. When you pause in conversation, you create a moment of tension that naturally draws attention and focus. People lean in mentally and emotionally, waiting to hear what you will say next. This attention gives your subsequent words greater weight and influence than they would have if delivered immediately and without consideration. Pausing also demonstrates confidence and self-control. Insecure people feel compelled to fill every silence immediately, afraid that others will judge them harshly for not having instant responses. But confident people are comfortable with moments of quiet reflection. They trust that their eventual response will be worth waiting for. And this trust is usually validated by the quality of their communications. The strategic pause can shift the entire dynamic of a conversation or negotiation. When someone makes a statement or proposal and you pause before responding, you create psychological pressure that often causes them to continue talking. This additional information can be invaluable as people often reveal more than they intended when they feel the need to fill silence. Mastering the pause requires overcoming the social conditioning that equates silence with awkwardness. Most people have been taught that conversations should flow smoothly without gaps or hesitations. However, this conditioning prevents them from accessing the power that comes from thoughtful reflection and deliberate response. Learning to be comfortable with pauses means unlearning these social expectations and developing new communication habits. The quality of a pause matters as much as its duration. A pause filled with anxiety, uncertainty, or self-consciousness has a very different impact than a pause filled with calm reflection and purposeful consideration. The energy you bring to your pauses affects how others perceive them and respond to them. Confident, purposeful pauses command respect, while nervous, uncertain pauses may create discomfort. In presentations and public speaking, strategic pauses can dramatically increase your impact and influence. They allow your audience to process important information, create emphasis for key points, and build anticipation for what comes next. Great speakers understand that silence can be more powerful than words, and they use pauses to control the rhythm and energy of their presentations. The pause also serves as a filter for your communications. When you consistently pause before speaking, you give yourself the opportunity to consider whether your planned response is necessary, helpful, and appropriate. This filtering process prevents many communication mistakes and reduces the likelihood of saying something you will regret later. Different types of pauses serve different purposes in communication. The reflective pause shows that you are considering what was said carefully before responding. The dramatic pause creates emphasis and builds tension. The respectful pause honors the gravity of a moment or the emotions of others. The strategic pause creates pressure and gathers information. Learning to use different types of pauses appropriately is advanced communication skill. Mastering the pause also improves your listening skills dramatically. When you are not immediately preparing your response, you can focus more completely on understanding what others are saying. This deeper listening leads to better responses, stronger relationships, and more effective communication. Overall, the pause can be particularly powerful in conflict situations. When someone is angry or aggressive, a calm, thoughtful pause before responding can diffuse tension and demonstrate that you are not going to be drawn into reactive behavior. This often causes the other person to reconsider their approach and communicate more reasonably. In learning and educational contexts, the pause allows for deeper processing and integration of information. When you pause after receiving new information, you give your mind time to connect it with existing knowledge and understand its implications. This leads to better retention and more meaningful learning. The mastery of pauses also affects your relationship with time itself. Instead of feeling rushed or pressured to respond immediately to every situation, you develop a more relaxed and deliberate relationship with time. You begin to see that most things do not require immediate response and that taking time to consider your actions usually leads to better outcomes. Professional contexts offer numerous opportunities to leverage the power of strategic pauses. In meetings, pausing before responding to questions or challenges demonstrates thoughtfulness and gravity. In negotiations, pauses can create pressure that leads to better offers or concessions. In leadership situations, pauses can build anticipation and ensure that your words carry maximum impact. The pause also serves as a bridge between reactive and responsive behavior. Reactive behavior is immediate, emotional, and often regrettable. Responsive behavior is thoughtful, intentional, and usually more effective. The pause is what transforms reaction into response, creating space for wisdom to emerge between stimulus and action. Practicing the pause requires conscious effort and deliberate development. You must catch yourself before automatically responding and create intentional moments of silence. This practice feels unnatural at first, but like any skill, it becomes more comfortable and natural with repetition. Over time, the strategic pause becomes an automatic part of your communication style. The compound effect of mastering pauses extends far beyond communication. The patience, self-control, and wisdom developed through pause practice transfer to other areas of life. You become less reactive in general, more thoughtful in your decisions, and more effective in your actions. These character developments have far-reaching positive impacts on your success and fulfillment. Advanced pause mastery includes learning to read the pauses of others. When someone pauses before responding, you can often learn as much from their hesitation as from their eventual words. These insights into others' thought processes, emotional states, and intentions become valuable information for building relationships and making decisions about trust and collaboration. Chapter 13. Silence is Self-Mastery. Self-mastery is the ultimate goal of personal development, and silence is both a tool for achieving it and a demonstration of it. When you have mastered yourself, you no longer feel compelled to react immediately to every stimulus, to defend every aspect of your life, or to seek validation for every choice you make. You operate from a place of inner strength and clarity that does not depend on external circumstances or other people's opinions. The journey to self-mastery through silence begins with recognizing how much of your behavior is driven by unconscious reactions rather than conscious choices. Most people are constantly reacting to their environment, their emotions, and other people's actions without ever pausing to consider whether their responses are serving their best interests. Silence creates the space necessary for this consideration and choice. True self-mastery means having control over your impulses, emotions, and reactions. It means being able to choose your response to any situation rather than being at the mercy of automatic patterns of behavior. Silence is the practice ground for this control. Every time you choose to remain silent when you want to speak, you strengthen your ability to choose conscious response over unconscious reaction. The relationship between silence and emotional regulation is fundamental to self-mastery. When you can remain calm and centered in the face of provocation, criticism, or pressure, you demonstrate mastery over your emotional state. This emotional stability becomes a source of strength that others can rely on and a foundation for better decision-making in all areas of life. Self-mastery through silence also involves transcending the ego's need for recognition, validation, and being right. The ego constantly seeks external confirmation of its worth and importance, driving much of our communication and behavior. When you can remain silent even when you have something clever to say, even when you could prove someone wrong, even when you could impress others with your knowledge, you demonstrate freedom from ego-driven behavior. The practice of silence teaches you the difference between what you think and who you are. Many people identify completely with their thoughts and feelings, believing that every idea that crosses their mind is important and worth expressing. Self-mastery involves recognizing that you are not your thoughts, that you can observe your mental activity without being controlled by it, and that you can choose which thoughts to express and which to let pass. Mastery over your communication means understanding the impact of your words and choosing them consciously rather than speaking automatically. It means recognizing that your words have power to help or harm, to build or destroy, to create clarity or confusion. When you master silence, you develop the ability to communicate more effectively because you speak only when you have something valuable to contribute. The discipline required for silence mastery builds character traits that serve you in every area of life. Patience, self-control, wisdom, and emotional intelligence all develop through the practice of strategic silence. These traits compound over time, creating a foundation of strength and capability that supports success in relationships, career, and personal fulfillment. Self-mastery through silence also involves overcoming the fear of being misunderstood or judged. Many people speak constantly because they are afraid that others will make incorrect assumptions about their silence. Mastery means being comfortable with being misunderstood and recognizing that you cannot control other people's interpretations of your behavior. This freedom from the need to explain yourself is liberating and empowering. The relationship between silence and inner peace is central to self-mastery. When you are constantly reacting, explaining, defending, and engaging with external drama, your inner state remains turbulent and unstable. Silence allows your inner waters to become still, creating a sense of peace and centeredness that becomes your natural state rather than something you have to work to achieve. Mastery of silence also means learning to distinguish between productive and unproductive communication. Not every conversation is worth having, not every argument is worth engaging in, and not every opinion is worth expressing. Self-mastery involves developing the wisdom to recognize these distinctions and the discipline to act on them. The practice of silence mastery requires you to confront your own insecurities and anxieties. When you are afraid of being seen as boring, stupid, or irrelevant, you may feel compelled to speak even when you have nothing valuable to say. Working through these fears and developing genuine self-confidence allows you to be comfortable with silence and to speak only when you have something meaningful to contribute. Self-mastery through silence also involves developing a deep sense of self-reliance. Instead of constantly seeking feedback, validation, and guidance from others, you learn to trust your own judgment and decision-making abilities. This does not mean never seeking advice, but it means not being dependent on external input for every choice you make. The mastery of silence creates a form of personal power that is not dependent on external circumstances. While others may be thrown off balance by unexpected situations, criticism or pressure, your practice of silence has prepared you to remain centered and effective regardless of what is happening around you. This stability becomes a tremendous asset in leadership, relationships, and personal achievement. Advanced silence mastery includes learning to use different qualities of silence for different purposes. Sometimes silence is supportive and nurturing, creating space for others to express themselves. Sometimes silence is protective, shielding you from unnecessary conflict or drama. Sometimes silence is strategic, creating pressure or gathering information. Mastering these different applications of silence makes you more effective in various situations. The compound effect of silence mastery extends far beyond communication skills. The self-control, wisdom, and emotional regulation developed through silence practice improve every aspect of your life. Your relationships become deeper and more authentic. Your decision-making becomes clearer and more effective. And your overall sense of well-being and fulfillment increases significantly. Self-mastery through silence also connects you with a deeper sense of purpose and meaning. When you are not constantly caught up in reactive behavior and external drama, you have more mental and emotional space to connect with what truly matters to you. This clarity of purpose becomes a guiding force that helps you make better choices and create a more meaningful life. The ultimate goal of silence mastery is not to become a silent person but to become a person who chooses silence or speech consciously rather than automatically. It is about developing the wisdom to know when to speak and when to remain quiet. The courage to act on this wisdom and the discipline to maintain this practice even when it is challenging or uncomfortable. Chapter 14. Building Your Silent Empire. An empire built in silence is more powerful and enduring than one built through noise and self-promotion. While others are busy broadcasting their every move and seeking attention for their efforts, those who understand the principles of silent empire building are quietly creating systems, relationships, and value that will stand the test of time. This approach to success focuses on substance over appearance, results over recognition, and long-term impact over short-term visibility. The foundation of a silent empire is competence developed in private, while others are seeking shortcuts and looking for ways to appear successful without doing the work. Silent empire builders are developing real skills, real knowledge, and real capabilities. They understand that true power comes from being able to deliver results consistently, not from being able to talk convincingly about theoretical results. Silent empire building requires a fundamental shift in how you measure success. Instead of measuring progress by recognition, applause, or external validation, you measure it by internal growth, skill development, and actual achievement. This shift allows you to focus on activities that create real value rather than activities that create the appearance of value. The networks that support silent empires are different from those that support public empires. Instead of focusing on quantity of connections or visibility of relationships, silent empire builders focus on quality of relationships and depth of trust. They cultivate connections with people who value substance over style and who can recognize competence without needing it to be advertised. Resource allocation in silent empire building prioritizes long-term investments over short-term gains, while others are spending time and energy on self-promotion, networking events, and visibility campaigns. Silent builders are investing in skill development, system creation, and relationship building. These investments may not pay immediate dividends, but they create compound returns over time. The competitive advantages of silent empire building are numerous and significant. When you are not constantly broadcasting your strategies and plans, competitors cannot easily copy or counter your moves. When you are focused on building rather than promoting, you often move faster and more efficiently than those who divide their attention between doing and performing. Silent empires are built through consistent daily actions rather than dramatic gestures. Each day of focused work, each skill developed privately, each relationship built authentically adds to the foundation of your empire. This consistency creates momentum that compounds over time, leading to achievements that seem sudden to outside observers but were actually years in the making. The leadership style that emerges from silent empire building is particularly effective because it is based on demonstrated competence rather than charismatic presentation. People follow silent leaders because they trust their abilities and judgment, not because they are impressed by their speaking skills or social media presence. This trust-based leadership is more stable and enduring than influence based on personality or presentation. Risk management in silent empire building is more effective because it is not complicated by public perception or reputation management concerns. When you make decisions based on objective merit rather than how they will be perceived publicly, you can take calculated risks that others might avoid for fear of public failure. This willingness to take intelligent risks often leads to breakthroughs and opportunities. The systems and processes that support silent empires are typically more robust and sustainable because they are designed for function rather than appearance without the pressure to make everything look impressive to outsiders. Silent builders can focus on creating systems that actually work efficiently and effectively rather than systems that look good in presentations. Innovation within silent empires often surpasses that of more visible organizations because there is less pressure to conform to external expectations or industry standards. When you are not constantly explaining and defending your approaches to outsiders, you have more freedom to experiment, iterate, and develop unique solutions to problems. The talent acquisition and development within silent empires tends to be superior because it focuses on substance over credentials. Silent builders are more likely to recognize talent that others overlook and to develop people based on their actual capabilities rather than their ability to interview well or present impressively. Financial management in silent empire building is typically more conservative and sustainable because it is not driven by the need to maintain appearances or meet external expectations without the pressure to look successful. Silent builders can make financial decisions based on actual business needs and long-term sustainability rather than short-term image management. The scalability of silent empires is often superior because the foundations are built on systems and competencies rather than personal charisma or public perception. When the empire is not dependent on the founders' public presence or reputation, it can grow and expand more easily without being limited by one person's capacity for public engagement. Cultural development within silent empires tends to be more authentic and sustainable because it emerges from shared values and actual practices rather than marketing messages and public relations campaigns. The culture is based on how people actually behave and what they actually value rather than what they say they value for public consumption. Legacy planning for silent empires is more straightforward because the value is inherent in the systems, relationships, and capabilities that have been developed rather than in public perception or personal brand. These tangible assets can be transferred more easily and are less dependent on external factors for their continued value. The satisfaction and fulfillment that comes from building a silent empire is often deeper and more lasting because it is based on real achievement rather than external recognition. When your sense of accomplishment comes from actual value creation rather than public applause, it is less vulnerable to changing opinions or shifting public attention. Exit strategies from silent empires are often more valuable because the empire is not dependent on the founders' continued public involvement. Buyers and successors are purchasing actual capabilities and systems rather than personal brand value, which makes the transition smoother and the value more sustainable. The patience required for silent empire building is one of its greatest challenges but also one of its greatest strengths. While others are seeking quick recognition and immediate returns, silent builders are willing to invest years or even decades in creating something truly valuable. This long-term perspective allows for deeper foundations and more sustainable growth. Perhaps most importantly, silent empires tend to have more positive and lasting impact because they are built on a foundation of service and value creation rather than self-promotion and personal aggrandizement. When your focus is on creating real value for others rather than recognition for yourself, you naturally build something that benefits more people and contributes more meaningfully to the world. Chapter 15. The Flow State of Life. When you master the power of silence, you discover that life itself can become a flow state. Just as athletes and artists experience flow when they are completely absorbed in their performance, Operating at peak efficiency without self-consciousness or strain, you can learn to move through life with this same quality of effortless effectiveness. This is what it means to make everything flow in your favor through the power of silence. The flow state of life emerges when you stop fighting against reality and start moving with it. Instead of constantly reacting to circumstances, trying to control outcomes, or forcing solutions, you learn to observe, adapt, and respond with the natural wisdom that comes from inner stillness. This shift from force to flow transforms every aspect of your experience, creating a life that feels both effortless and highly effective. In relationships, the flow state means connecting with others without agenda, manipulation, or the need to prove anything. You become genuinely present with people, listening deeply, responding authentically, and allowing relationships to develop naturally rather than trying to control or engineer them. This natural approach creates deeper, more meaningful connections that enhance your life in unexpected ways. You stop trying to make people like you and instead become someone who naturally attracts the right people into your life. Professional flow emerges when you stop trying to impress others and focus instead on delivering excellent work consistently. When your reputation is built on reliable competence rather than self-promotion, opportunities begin to seek you out rather than requiring you to chase them. Your career develops momentum that feels natural and sustainable rather than forced and exhausting. You find yourself in positions that align with your talents and values because you have stopped forcing yourself into roles that require you to be someone you are not. Financial flow occurs when you make money decisions from a place of clarity and long-term thinking rather than fear, greed, or social pressure. When you are not constantly comparing yourself to others or trying to maintain appearances, you can make financial choices that align with your actual values and objectives. This leads to more sustainable prosperity and less financial stress. Money becomes a tool for creating the life you want rather than a source of anxiety or a means of impressing others. The flow state of decision-making emerges when you learn to access your intuitive wisdom through silence and combine it with rational analysis. Instead of agonizing over decisions or making choices based on external pressure, you develop the ability to sense the right course of action and move forward with confidence. This leads to better outcomes and less decision fatigue. You begin to trust your inner guidance while still gathering the information you need to make informed choices. Creative flow becomes accessible when you stop forcing inspiration and learn to create space for it to emerge naturally. By regularly practicing silence and stillness, you connect with the deeper sources of creativity and innovation that exist within you. Your creative work becomes more authentic, more powerful and more fulfilling because it emerges from genuine inspiration rather than manufactured effort. You discover that creativity is not something you do, but something you allow. Physical flow manifests when you learn to listen to your body's natural rhythms and needs rather than forcing it to conform to external schedules or expectations. You eat when you are hungry, rest when you are tired, and move when your body wants activity. This natural approach to physical health creates more energy, better health outcomes, and a more sustainable lifestyle. Your body becomes an ally rather than something you must control or overcome. Emotional flow develops when you stop resisting your feelings and learn to experience them fully without being controlled by them. Instead of suppressing difficult emotions or being overwhelmed by them, you develop the ability to feel deeply while maintaining your center and perspective. This emotional mastery creates greater resilience and more authentic relationships. You become comfortable with the full spectrum of human emotion while remaining grounded in your core stability. The learning flow state emerges when you approach new knowledge and skills with genuine curiosity rather than performance anxiety. When you are not worried about appearing smart or avoiding mistakes, you can focus completely on understanding and growth. This natural learning approach leads to deeper comprehension and more rapid skill development. You become a lifelong learner who is excited by challenges rather than threatened by them. Social flow occurs when you move through social situations without the need to perform, impress, or defend yourself. You become genuinely interested in others rather than focused on how you are being perceived. This authentic presence makes you more attractive to high-quality people and creates more meaningful social connections. You stop networking and start building genuine relationships based on mutual value and respect. The flow state of communication develops when you speak from authenticity rather than strategy. Instead of calculating what to say for maximum impact or advantage, you communicate from a place of truth and genuine intention. This authentic communication creates deeper understanding and stronger relationships while requiring less energy and effort. Your words carry more weight because they come from a place of sincerity rather than manipulation. Time flow emerges when you stop fighting against time and learn to work with natural rhythms and cycles. Instead of trying to force productivity or efficiency, you learn to recognize when to work intensively and when to rest, when to push forward and when to pause. This natural approach to time management creates more sustainable productivity and less stress. You discover that there is actually more time available when you stop rushing through life. Spiritual flow develops when you connect with something larger than yourself without the need to have all the answers or to convince others of your beliefs. Whether through meditation, nature, service or creative expression, you find ways to experience connection and meaning that nourish your soul and provide guidance for your life choices. This spiritual dimension adds depth and purpose to all your other activities. Parenting flow emerges when you guide your children from presence rather than anxiety, from wisdom rather than control. You create space for your children to develop their own personalities and capabilities while providing the structure and guidance they need. This approach creates stronger family bonds and raises more confident, capable children who trust their own judgment while respecting appropriate authority. Health flow manifests when you make choices that support your long-term well-being rather than seeking quick fixes or following the latest trends. You develop an intuitive understanding of what your body needs and create sustainable habits that enhance your vitality. This includes not just physical health but mental and emotional health as well. Creating a holistic approach to wellness that feels natural and sustainable. The compound effect of living in flow creates a life that feels meaningful, sustainable, and deeply satisfying. Instead of constantly struggling against circumstances or trying to force outcomes, you learn to move with the natural currents of life while maintaining your direction and purpose. This creates a sense of ease and effectiveness that others find magnetic and inspiring. People are drawn to those who have learned to live in flow because they represent the possibility of a different way of being. Obstacles and challenges still exist in the flow state of life, but your relationship to them changes completely. Instead of seeing problems as threats or failures, you see them as information and opportunities for growth. You respond to difficulties with curiosity and creativity rather than fear and resistance, which leads to better solutions and less suffering. Challenges become puzzles to solve rather than enemies to defeat. The mastery of flow through silence also creates a positive influence on others. When you operate from this place of centered effectiveness, you model a different way of being that inspires others to seek their own flow state. Your example becomes a gift to those around you, showing them that there is an alternative to the stress, struggle, and constant noise that characterizes most people's lives. You become a source of calm. In a chaotic world, leadership flow emerges when you guide others through inspiration rather than force, through example rather than commands. You create environments where others can discover their own capabilities and find their own flow state. This type of leadership is more effective and more fulfilling because it is based on empowerment rather than control. The transformation that occurs when you master the flow state of life through silence is profound and lasting. You move from being at the mercy of circumstances to being a conscious creator of your experience. You shift from reactive living to responsive living, from forced effort to natural effectiveness, from external validation to internal satisfaction. This transformation touches every aspect of your existence and creates ripple effects that extend far beyond your personal life. Perhaps most importantly, the flow state of life creates a deep sense of alignment between who you are and how you live. When your actions emerge from inner wisdom rather than external pressure. When your choices reflect your authentic values rather than social expectations. And when your responses come from presence rather than reactivity, you experience the profound satisfaction of living with integrity and purpose. This is the ultimate power of silence. It does not just change how you communicate or how others perceive you. It transforms your entire approach to life, creating a way of being that is more effective, more fulfilling, and more influential than any amount of noise could ever achieve. When you master silence, you do not just speak more powerfully when you choose to speak. You live more powerfully in every moment, creating a life where everything flows in your favor naturally and effortlessly. The journey to this flow state is not always easy, but it is always worthwhile. Every moment of silence you cultivate, every reaction you transform into a response, every choice you make from presence rather than pressure brings you closer to this state of natural effectiveness. And once you taste this way of living, you will never want to return to the chaos and struggle of a life lived without the power of silence. This is your invitation to begin that journey, to discover the profound transformation that awaits when you embrace the power of silence and allow it to make everything flow in your favor. The world needs more people who understand this power, who can model this way of being, and who can create positive change through their silent strength and wisdom. You have the capacity to become one of these people, and the time to begin is